Hi, this is Jeff with Fish Creek Capital. I want to talk about two types of savings accounts today, a 529 plan and then a UTMA account. What in the world is a UTMA account? Stick with me and you can find out. Let's start with a 529 plan. Most of you are going to be familiar with a 529 plan. They're specifically for qualified education expenses. Typically, that's going to be college. It could be K through 12 education. Sometimes it can go toward student loan repayment. There's tax benefits to the 529 plan, and in that when you do take qualified distributions for education, those are tax free. You can contribute a lot of money to a 529 plan. Generally, it can be several $100,000. It does depend upon the state that you live in, so always check that out. But there's a high limit to what you can contribute. And then the control of a 529 plan is going to be often a parent or a grandparent. They're going to control the funds, and it's not going to be the child. They are going to be limited to education expenses with that control. And then also something that you might not be might not be as common, a 529 plan can really only be invested in approved investments from the state. That generally means you're going to be limited to mutual funds. So there are expenses with mutual funds. Here at Fish Creek Capital, we're not really big fans of mutual funds. So that's something to consider when you do create a 529 plan for your child or minor. So what is a UTMA account? That stands for Uniform Transfers to Minors Act. It's also a type of savings account for a child or a minor, but it's totally different than a 529 plan. Let's go through some of what that means. So the purpose of a UTMA account is going to be a custodial account that holds assets for a minor until they reach the age of majority. So that basically means when they reach adulthood, and that can also change upon the state. So look into make sure you know those rules, but generally that means 18 to 21 years old. The taxes on a UTMA account compared to like a 529 account, they can be taxed. There's something called a kiddie tax rule, and that can apply to certain tax rates depending upon the bracket that the parents are in or the grandparents are in. But don't really worry about that right now. That's not so much the point. The cool part about a UTMA account and the point that I want to kind of bring out with it is that it's not limited to education expenses. It can be spent on anything that benefits that child or minor. So if your child's not necessarily going to go to college, maybe they're going to start a business, maybe they're going to do a trade school, maybe they're going to buy a house or make an investment in a rental property. You can set aside funds in a UTMA account for that very purpose, which is actually pretty cool. Another advantage of a UTMA account is that it is not limited to the state's approval for the investment. So that means you don't have to just invest in mutual funds. You can invest in stocks or bonds or ETFs. And here at Fish Creek Capital, we love that because we like investing in individual companies, especially individual companies that are paying their earnings back to shareholders in the form of a dividend. And it's even better when they're growing that dividend. So we love that feature of a UTMA account. Most people don't really know about a UTMA account. I was working with a client just this past week, and we were talking about their 529 plan and how it was limited just to those education expenses. And this child really didn't want to go to college. They wanted to actually start a business. And we were saying how it was a shame that you couldn't really use those funds for that purpose. And I brought up the fact that a UTMA account for this specific child would have been a way better scenario because you could actually designate those funds for something like that. And so just something to consider when you're looking at investments for your children. I would Highly advise having a plan for your child. The sooner you can start, the better, whether it's a 529 plan or a UTMA account. Those are great options to consider. Please reach out. I would love to help you talk through it. You can reach me, fishcreekcapital.com. Thanks for watching. Please like and follow.